Welcome to another episode of the Spurs Takeover. I'm your host, Joe Garcia, and we're going to be joined today by our co-host and good friend, Steven Anderson of Project Spurs. We're going to be recapping the Spurs Jazz game as the Spurs get a much-needed victory and stop the three-game skid by defeating the Jazz by a final score of 127-120. The Jazz now have a record of 32-15, and the Spurs are now 21-26 on the season. Saw a lot of good things tonight, Stephen. Mainly, They played good team basketball. They moved the ball well. They weren't bunched up together. Now they were kind of moving in the flow of the offense. We saw a lot of screens, saw a lot of give and goes, saw a lot of little pick and roll action there. Once again, DeMar DeRozan had an outstanding game. I think he finished the night with 38 points on the night. So he looked good. He looked great. It kind of makes us forget that we still have another guy on the team by the name of LaMarcus Aldridge. So, hey, man, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and lead it to you, Steven. But isn't this just one of these things that kind of confuses everybody? Why do the Spurs get up for the upper echelon teams and then they get, beat by the Chicago Bulls when they were up by 11 points in that fourth quarter? To me, I just can't figure them out, man. I mean, what did you see in tonight's game?
Yeah, Joe, first of all, thanks for having me back. My first takeover in about a couple of weeks. I was going to be back. But so it was I think it's probably the Spurs' best game of the season, first of all. And I mean by that is complete game from start to finish, as you said. I mean, they looked good the entire game. When that fourth quarter rolled around, I was like, oh, here we go. Because that fourth quarter has been an Achilles heel for this team for quite some time. But they stuck with it. They played good defense. They moved the ball. DeMar DeRozan channeled his inner Kobe there. And he scored 38 points. DeMar DeRozan deserves to be an All-Star. Let me just say this real quickly. He deserves to be an All-Star the way he's been playing this season for the Spurs. That will end the Spurs streak of however long of having at least one player in the All-Star game. So I don't believe he will be an All-Star, unfortunately. But some good news, he'll get some rest during All-Star weekend. But I mean, it sucks because he's being overlooked, and if DeMar was not with the Spurs right now, I don't think this team would be where they are. They'd probably be near Golden State level of play. But as far as the rest of the game goes tonight, Joe, Derek White, fantastic. DeJounte Murray did well. Lonnie Walker had some big moments. I will say Lonnie needs to stop being so hesitant. He needs to start kind of trusting himself more. And I think that just comes with experience. That comes with being comfortable out there. And you're going to see that as he goes on. But you're right. I honestly forgot about LaMarcus. I know that he missed that game against Chicago with I think it was a thumb injury that he had. Say that again?
Oh, I didn't say nothing. I just lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. So I know he did not have the game again. He did not play against Chicago. Sorry, with that injury. So DeMar was out there by himself. And honestly, I forgot LaMarcus was on the team that night. To be quite honest with you. So I mean, the Spurs have played well against some of the top teams, and as you said, you're right. They do tend to play not up to their potential against these lesser teams, like a Chicago, like an Atlanta. And I'm not going to say it's concerning. It's just frustrating because they beat a very good Utah Jazz team tonight. They did. They beat a very good Utah team that's going to be a threat in the playoffs, but yet they lose to a team like Chicago that's hovering close to the somewhat near bottom of the Eastern Conference. So that's a little bit surprising to me. I say the reason why I'm not too concerned is because this team is capable of playing a lot better than what we saw in Chicago. Obviously, we saw that tonight. So I think maybe tonight's a turning point. Hopefully, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but hopefully tonight's a turning point because it was a solid 48-minute game from the Spurs, both on both ends of the floor. So maybe this can be a turning point for the rest of the season.
Yeah, maybe it can be a turning point. Just some of the stats from tonight that kind of stuck out at me. I'm looking here, and field goal percentage is one of the ones that I always check out. Spurs shot 56.1% for the night, connected on 46 of 82 of their shots. Three-pointers. How well did they shoot from beyond the arc? Well, tonight, not so good. And they didn't really need to, though, because they capitalized on their mid-range game. But from beyond the arc, they hit 8 of 31 of their three-point attempts, and that was good enough for a three-point shooting percentage of 25.8% on the night.
Yeah.
Now, the rebounding battle, the edge goes to the Jazz. The Jazz out-rebounded the Spurs 43-35. The assists, though, were in favor of the Spurs tonight. The Spurs shared the ball well. I think we saw that most of the game. They had 23 assists on the night versus the Jazz, who just had 18. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The turnovers, that was kind of an Achilles heel for the Spurs over their 3-game skid. Tonight, they only had 9 turnovers compared to the Jazz, who had 13. So that was actually a lot better as far as the Spurs being able to take care of the ball. Now, their fast break points, that was almost even. The Spurs kind of had the edge on the Jazz in that regards by 2 points. Spurs scored 17 fast break points. Jazz, they scored 15 compared to the Spurs 17. Now, points in the paint, that was a very heated battle, I got to tell you. The Spurs barely won that battle by 2 points. They had the edge on the Jazz by outscoring them with the points in the paint 42-40. So overall, what it leads to is that the Spurs got the 7-point win over the Jazz. They got a much needed win, and they're doing these things and playing better at the right time because they have one more game against the Charlotte Hornets before they hit the road on this juggernaut that is going to be the rodeo road trip. DeJounte Murray, I got to say something about him. He kind of went MIA for a little bit, and I was kind of worried about him. But tonight, he showed up. He had 30 minutes. He had 16 points. He had 1 block. He had 3 steals. And he had 4 assists. He had a good overall game. I want to continue to see him build upon this game and get better because he looked a lot better out there. He made better decisions with the ball for one. And he was actually shooting a lot better, I thought, as far as his mid-range game. He was getting in position. He was using the Jakob Portal screens. He was actually playing smarter basketball instead of trying to force the issue. So that shows you that his growth as a player is out there for everybody to see. You just hope that it continues.
Yeah, and the thing is, with DeJounte Murray, I mean, it was concerning to me when Pop said, I think it was like in November or something around that time, early in the season, that he pulled him up as a starter and started Derek White, and Pop said something along the lines of, the team feels more comfortable with Derek White as a starter, not DeJounte. And I thought that's not very good for DeJounte's confidence, considering he was out all last season. With that injury, he comes back. He's a lot more explosive. But tonight it showed what he can do when he's on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders on both offensively and defensively. I think that if DeJounte can play at this level on a consistent basis, that's going to be key, Joe, if he can do it on a consistent basis. Because if he can, and DeMar's going to be DeMar, and Derek White can be Derek White, and LaMarcus can get at least 15 a game out of LaMarcus, the Spurs could easily climb up the standings in the second half of the season and stop hovering around that 7 or 8 spot, maybe move up to 6. But I think if the Spurs play like they're doing right now and they play like they did tonight, the Spurs will be in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the bench, I was looking at the bench play as well. The bench came out big tonight. They had, I think it was a little over 50 points of production from the offense, from the bench, from the Spurs bench tonight, which was instrumental, especially in that final quarter, that fourth quarter, where the Jazz kind of, had the Spurs back on their heels. Spurs were shooting too early in the clock. They didn't take enough of the shot clock off, but they seemed to rectify those issues. And it seems when the Jazz would try to make a run, the Spurs had an answer. And that's one of the things that I like tonight as far as the team goes. They played an overall great, I guess they played great team ball tonight is what I want to say, versus playing that isolation ball, that hero ball that I call it, when somebody wants to put the team on their shoulders and all but forgoes getting back to the basics of, playing the fundamentals of Spurs basketball. Tonight, we saw them play a lot smarter. It looks like they even didn't have a hard time dispatching this Utah Jazz team. The Utah Jazz were never really in this game. And that was surprising to me that the Spurs were able to jump on them and kind of keep the lead. They never let them get back into the game per se. Yes, the Jazz made runs, and basketball's a game of runs. But for the most part, the Spurs played a complete game, not just on offense, but I got to say, Steven, they played a great game defensively as well. Yeah. Now, you have the Charlotte Hornets. What do you think they're going to do against the Hornets? Are they going to get blown out by 30? Or are they going to finally say, you know what, let's go ahead and lay waste to this team from the get go? What are your thoughts?
Joe, I have a good friend who's a journalist for the AP, and it's Raul Dominguez. I'm not sure if you know him as well, but every time he and I tweet about the Spurs, he says Spurs could either win by 30 or lose by 5 or be blown out by 50. I mean, there's no guarantees with this team this season. And honestly, to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen when they play the Hornets because, as you said, they're not Hornets are not a very good team. The Spurs have a tendency to play down to the opponent's level that they're facing. If they do that and they play down to the Hornets level, it could be a very bad night for the Spurs closing out this homestand before they hit the road. I hope not. I would hope that the Spurs can play like they did tonight and just really stay on it and make mincemeat of the Hornets because the Hornets are not very good. The Utah Jazz are a much better team than the Hornets are, and look what the Spurs did. But that's the big question mark, Joe. Can this team finally get it together against the lesser teams? Because if they can, then I think the Spurs are in good position before they hit the road. But that's going to be the interesting thing. They got Nicholas Batum. They got some very good shooters. They got some good rebounders on the Hornets. Don't let the Hornets record fool you. When the Hornets are on it, they can beat some of these teams. They took the Lakers to task a little bit early in the season, early on, and the Lakers end up winning the game. But they took the Lakers to task a little bit. They took Milwaukee to task in the East. And Milwaukee, you know how untouchable Milwaukee is. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Spurs can do. But I mean, the Spurs are at home. They're a much better home team than they are on the road. I like their chances at home, honestly.
Yeah, I like their chances at home. They have that one game, as I stated, against the Hornets. After that, they have the 8 game road trip where they play the Lakers and they're also going to play the Clippers to start off this 8 game road trip, which
Yeah.
it doesn't get any easier. After that, they also have other teams that are doing pretty good, and the Denver Nuggets. Then they're going to have to play Oklahoma City Thunder twice. Not only that, but they're also going to have to play the Kings. The Kings notoriously have had the Spurs number. I don't like the Spurs odds against the Kings. The Kings, for whatever reason, they just run
Yeah.
the tables on the Spurs all night. They get out there in the open court, and I think it has more to do with matchups. There's some teams that the Spurs just match up horribly against, and I believe that the Kings are one of those teams because of their athleticism and their
Hmm.
speed. That athleticism, their length, and their speed seems to bother the Spurs, especially one LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah.
you know,
That's true. No, you're right. I'm not disputing that. That's true. LaMarcus has a tougher time against big men with length. Just look at Anthony Davis, for example. Look at Hassan Whiteside. Statistically, even before this season, Joe, before he was in Portland, um, LaMarcus always struggled against Hassan Whiteside. Is going back to Hassan's rookie season, so it's not something new. But LaMarcus has always struggled going back to his career against those big men with length. If you remember when Pau Gasol was with the Lakers at the time, of course Pau was younger then, LaMarcus was younger then,
yeah.
but LaMarcus still struggled against him. So I mean, it's just a matter of matchups and defensively and what guys can do. And I mean, I'm already dreading that Anthony Davis matchup with LaMarcus. I already know it's going to be a bad night for him, and we haven't even seen the game yet. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a matter of what. But here's the thing, Joe. Again, if you know LaMarcus is going to struggle against some of those guys, the other guys need to be ready on the team. Bryn Forbes, DeMar, Derek White, DeJounte Murray. They have to be ready to score the basketball. They have to be ready to penetrate. They have to be ready to do what they need to do to get the win. And we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Our good friend Michael De Leon wants to know, what club are you broadcasting from, Stephen? Because of the lovely lights that you have behind you there, and you're
Oh
blurring
my
out
goodness.
your background. So it's an ongoing joke with Mike. Ha 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 ha, Mike, you
I
got
love
us.
Mike.
Yeah,
That's good. I'm glad he's watching. That's good. I'm glad he's watching. But to
he
answer
is.
to answer his question, actually, the lights are in memory of Kobe Bryant. It's my first show since Kobe's passing, unfortunately. And I mean, just real quickly, you know, I'm sure all of us were shocked. I mean, I was shocked when I got the news. I literally looked at my phone for like 5 minutes. I was like, I don't believe what this story is. I don't believe it. Even though Adrian Wojnarowski confirmed it on social media, we all know he knows everything. But I just didn't want to believe it. And the more news we got deeper in the day, I literally spent my Sunday watching Kobe Bryant coverage. I'm not even kidding. And to lose someone of his caliber so early and the way it happened was just horrific. Even to this day, today is Wednesday, Joe, and I'm still thinking of Vanessa. I'm still thinking of Kobe's family he left behind.
Yeah.
To lose your husband and your daughter in the same day, I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm not married, I don't have kids, but I mean, you as a husband and as a father, Joe, I'm pretty sure you would be distraught at the fact of losing your wife and your kids in the same day. But I
Yeah.
mean, to Kobe and to his family and to the Lakers, and I mean, to see what people don't understand, Joe, and I mean, I have friends who aren't even sports fans, and they don't understand what Kobe meant to the city of Los Angeles. It's like Tim Duncan passing away in a car accident suddenly like that, and I don't wish that on anybody. But it's the same level of that. Timmy means a lot to the city of San Antonio, and to lose Timmy in a way like that would be just as tragic for this city as losing Kobe is to LA. So I mean, that's what the lights are for. Just remembering Kobe, and I mean, let me just say that it puts a new perspective on things. I mean, it shouldn't, and I hate that it comes in these situations. But we saw it all day, and I even tweeted this. I posted on my Instagram, and I've been posting it, reposting it all day, which was don't take things for granted. People take for granted, those text messages that text me and let me get home safe, and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't hear back from those people, and people take it for granted. But this shows. We heard in the news. Kobe actually told his wife and told his daughters, I'll see you later on, because he was going to go fly in the morning and he was going to come back, I believe, later that night. And he said, I'll see you tonight. And obviously, he never came back. So, I mean, let me just say this real quickly. I don't want to go on too long about it, but um, don't take it for granted. If you text your friends every day, even if you don't talk to them every day, just text them daily. Hey, have a great day, and just leave. Even if you don't talk to them the rest of the day, just do that. I mean, don't take for granted that they're going to be there all the time, because you don't want to have a situation where you don't talk to them and you regret wishing you did. Hug the people you love. Tell them you love them every day. Don't hold back, because you don't know what's going to happen. Shaquille O'Neal actually was on Inside the NBA yesterday, emotional. And to make Shaquille O'Neal cry, you know how serious and how tragic this is. But you can tell by the look on his face and what he said, he regrets not speaking to Kobe more. He even said the last time he spoke to Kobe and saw him was when Kobe scored those 60 points when he retired. And that was a couple of years ago. So, I mean, you can just tell the regret that he has. But yeah, Joe, that's what the lights are about. And I mean, I just needed to say that. So thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah. So to answer Michael's question, you're at Club Steven right now.
Yes. Yes, I am. I'm enjoying some nice Billie Eilish music before I came on the air. So.
There you go. Yeah, and we had a lot of other Spurs fans on here. Shout out to all you guys who come out here and support us, and give us these nice comments, such as Doris Copano Basco, Frank Ramirez, Michael De Leon, of course, Dave Ann. I know him. He's starting a travel kind of blog vlog that he's doing. So good things from him, man. Shout out to you. Keep doing your thing, brother. So
I got the strobe lights on now.
And we also had, I believe, Steven. Yes, shout out to you too, Steven Lozano. He was saying that the team is consistently inconsistent. Let's see, Doris. She was saying that she was getting scared. She goes, "No Brick Forbes at the last minute of play." So the Spurs fans like to come down on Bryn Forbes and Marco Beninelli. I in particular do the same thing. It just seems that they decide to go cold at inopportune times and crunch time in the fourth quarter. It is what it is on that end. But please, whatever you do, Coach Pop, don't put Bryn and Marco in at the same time. That just makes my heart beat real fast, because I get high blood pressure, because I get so angry, because we already know what's going to happen. They're a defensive liability waiting to happen. And sure enough, when they're on the floor together,
Oh
it
my
seems like the
goodness.
other team goes on big runs, and it's all but
I
over
will
for
say
the
this.
Spurs.
I will say this stuff real quickly is that you know people give them a lot of crap to reinforce their marketability, and rightly so. Um, that's not unvalid. That is completely valid to do so, because they're not consistent. I will be the first one to say they're not consistent. For those of you who watch the Project Spurs Roundtable, our brand new edition with Victoria Villarreal, I even pointed out to her. She said Brent Forbes was being consistent. I was like, no, he's really not. I mean, there's the point where I want to see consistency, and even though even though I scream at my TV sometimes, why are you putting them in? If Forbes is hot and having a good night, yes, you want to keep him in. As much as crappy as he is defensively, you need that offense from him. So if he's hot and Marco is hot, like we've seen Marco play some decent games, 12 points, 10 points, 11 points. They're not eye popping numbers or anything, but he's contributing little by little. So if they're contributing, by all means, leave him out there. But if they're crapping up the bed, sit him on the bench.
Yeah, that is true. If they're not being productive, you need
They're
to sit
not.
them on the bench and maybe play some other people. One of the guys that I was looking forward to seeing get some more run out there and the absence of LaMarcus Aldridge being out due to his sore thumb was Shizemi Metu. He did great, I think, in
Yes.
that last game and limited minutes that he had. I wanted to see him get some more run. I've been a Shizemi Metu fan because I've been watching this kid
Hmm.
develop, not only in the G League, but I was actually like really close to the guy in passing. Told him I was a big fan of his when I was down at the AT&T Center in the tunnel. Saw him walking by. Told him, "Hey man, I'm big fan of yours. I love watching you work out and watching you elevate your game." He was just like, "Yay, thanks, I appreciate it." Real humble guy. And now that I've seen him working with Tim Duncan out there on the court sometimes before, during shoot around, probably
Hmm.
like an hour or two before the game tips off. And I like to sit down and watch the players and how they interact not only with Timmy, but they have lighthearted moments. They're learning, but Timmy makes things fun for them. And it
Hmm.
seems like his teachings are out there on display now for everyone to see in Spurs Nation, namely how he's been working with not only Yaka, but how he's working with, the other big man, Yaka Portal as well. So
Yeah.
looking for great things to come out of Shizemi Metu. I want to see him flourish in the system and kind of stick around for a while because I think we really haven't seen what he's capable of doing. We've only seen little
Hmm.
spurts, and we saw him. I know you saw him play in the G
Yeah.
League, and he actually developed a better offensive game. And I want to see
Hmm.
that transition not just from the G League but over here with the team. So hopefully he can
I
get some more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, with Shimizu Metu, you're right. I've seen him develop. I keep up with the Austin Spurs. I don't cover them, unfortunately. That's our good friend Jonas Clark who actually has the task of covering them. But I do watch the Austin Spurs. I keep up with them, and you're right. I mean, when he first got in, I was a little hesitant because his offensive game was not as good as advertised whenever he was drafted. But seeing him offensively be consistent in the G League with Austin, and seeing him kind of translate a little bit to what he did on Monday night with the Spurs, who had a depleted front court because obviously LaMarcus was out with the injury. And I like what I saw. I like what I saw, and the same situation with Lonnie Walker, Joe. The only way he's going to get, and by he I mean Chimezi, is going to get that experience. He's going to have to play. So I think there's a reason why Pop keeps him. He signed him for not Pop, sorry, the Spurs signed him for a good long term deal. They brought it. They keep sending him back and forth between San Antonio and Austin. It just shows that the Spurs believe in this guy. The Spurs trust him, and I think little by little you'll see him up here with the big club pretty soon rather than later.
I hope so. I want to see him out there a little bit more. I don't want him to get 40 or 30 minutes by any means, but I think
Right.
if he can make the most out of his minutes that he's given. I think he played 11 minutes in that last game where I thought he had
Hmm.
a solid performance. I'd like to see him get somewhere around that, 8 minutes, maybe 11 minutes max. But still, any minutes played during the game, it's a learning experience for him, and he can
Yeah.
only get better from being out there and
Hmm.
playing in the concept of a full contact game. It's one thing to go against players in practice, but when you're going against better players from other
Hmm.
teams out there on the court, it's a different experience. It's an in-game experience. So I want to
Yeah.
see him flourish and grow. But, let's go ahead and transition here now before we go ahead and bring this show to an end. Where can the
Hmm.
people follow you and all the great things that you got cranking out for Project Spurs and the Project Spurs Network?
You guys can hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the Stephen A underscore. That is Stephen with a PH. And you guys, I follow as you guys know. I'll say it again. I cover everything from the Spurs, Rampage, or San Antonio FC season is about to start, which is very exciting. Then we have obviously college football, college UTSA, UIW, Trinity University. all over on the Project Spurs network. And for those of you who are not interested in sports but you like TV, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Stephen, Stephen with a PH, TB underscore. Cover everything from competition shows like America's Got Talent to shows like DC TV. So yeah, hop on there and we can talk some TV and sports.
Yeah, and also make sure you go and check out our friends at Project Spurs by going to projectspurs.com for all their great Spurs coverage and great content that they have from all the guys out there, including our friend Paul Garcia, who's the host of the Spurs Cast, which they just released an episode, I believe, earlier today. So make sure you go and check that out. And like Steven said, for all your other local coverage for local sports here in the San Antonio area, and also the San Antonio Rampage and the San Antonio FC, which Steven covers extensively, make sure you go and visit ProjectSpursNetwork.com. And you can also follow me, Joe Garcia, at Two Shots Podcast if you go to our Two Shots Podcast website, which is all spelled out, TWOSHOTS podcast.com. It'll have links to all our social media handles. And also you can go ahead and see the replay of the game recaps that we do, because we have a video wall there, so you can check out all the actual episodes of the Spurs Takeover there. So for Steven Anderson, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you for watching another episode of the Spurs Takeover. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind, we're out, peace.